As the world becomes more anxious and depressed, the main thing that we should be really focusing on to move forward is children. And our next guest is an art therapist who's going to be actually talking to us how art helps children see the world differently. Hi, this is Joey Barsettil, and welcome to the Secret Men's Business Podcast. On today's show, we're going to be speaking to a friend of mine that I haven't seen in a while, who is going to be talking to us about art and the way it heals and allows us to move forward in a beautiful way. And his name's John Strickland. How are you, John? How are you?
Oh, I'm very well, thank you. I'm very excited.
I'm very excited too. It's like, I'm really sorry it's taking me this long to get you to come on the show, because I have had you on my list for a very long time. And so thank you for coming in. So before we start, do you want to just tell people a little bit about what you do? Tell us a bit about you and how you, what you do for work and so on.
Okay, well, basically, I work in early childhood education. Currently, I work in a kindergarten, and I go to different daycare as well. And I have my own business. So basically, I call myself a creative therapist, where I use a lot of different creative arts to help children find ways to express themselves or to feel comfortable. Or, sometimes it's really hard just to fit in socially, I think. So finding different ways for children to be able to communicate, when communication for children can be quite difficult because they don't know the words that we know as adults. They don't know how to explain what they're feeling. They don't know, like a lot of them might have issues going on in their life, and they don't know whether or not that's like a normal thing or not. It's really difficult with children because sometimes you might suspect that there's an issue. You might suspect that there's problems going on at home, or you might suspect all these things, but when you sit down with them, and you might just realize that no, there isn't. It's not. Sometimes it can be a fantasy world in their head as well.
Yeah, I'm guessing it could also be just them. I mean, as soon as someone says the word kinder, I have anxiety because I hated kinder. I actually got expelled from kinder. Yeah.
Right.
It could, I think that it's quite. I know. I've heard the other day that kids are going to preschool like at 3 years old now. So
yes, they started 3-year-old kinder. I actually had been working in 3-year-old kinder for the last 10 weeks.
Oh my God! Like, isn't that a bit young for them to be? Is that traumatic for them, or is that a good thing?
Well, I think it depends on the child. I think this is just my opinion here, because there's a lot to be said about 3-year-old kinder. A lot of it is good socially. Like, it's good to get the kids social, get them to understand some structure to a day and things like that. I worry that they're not emotionally ready for it.
Yeah.
The separation from mum or dad or carer, it can be quite traumatic for them.
Yeah, but I guess at the other side, like, you're right. Like, if the kids are ready, and that could also be a place for the ones that aren't ready to become stronger, because that's the reason why I didn't like it, because I wasn't emotionally ready, and it was quite a traumatic experience because the other kids picked up on that, and so I felt really, bullied. But I wanted to ask you, because I've known you for a long time, and I didn't know I didn't know this part of your life. So I was wondering, how does one get into this desire? Like, what was the pull for you to work with children?
Okay. Well, I think very early on in my life, I guess I loved going to kinder, so opposite to you.
Yeah.
I loved kinder. I struggled at primary school a lot, I would say, because I had dyslexia. So I often get things mixed up around the wrong way. And I think that art helped me a lot there. Growing up, always feeling a little bit different. And I think I had really strong influences in my life. I had an auntie who's a primary school teacher, and she helped me a lot when it came to reading and writing and things like that. I think that I had really interesting teachers as well along the way.
Did you feel that you then wanted to pass that on? Is that why? It's interesting how you go through an experience and then you want to pass it on, become a teacher to other people.
Yeah. Well, I think after school, I went into retail world, and so I found myself doing things, teaching other people how to do things, doing visual merchandising and teaching other people how to do visual merchandising. And people used to always say to me, "You should be a teacher."
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I know.
so,
I just remembered how I met you. Where we met. We met. It's interesting because it was part of the art world. We met through a guy. We met when there was a time when your friend was a tattoo artist.
yes,
So it
yes.
was all about. So it's you've been around that sort of creative thing for a long time, haven't you? What other things do you do that are creative? What I know that you do art. Are you a creative person in general?
Yes, I would say that I'm very creative. I have a I think I create all sorts of things in my own mind as well. But I've played music since I was quite young as well.
That's
I
right.
played in like the Tasmanian Festival Wind Symphony, and I grew up in there. I think that's where I found myself actually through music.
Mm.
Um, and then through art as well. Like I've got an uncle who's an artist, and he does amazing bronze sculptures and things like that. So I've always been influenced.
Yeah.
A lot of my cousins are really arty, and they do
Yeah.
really amazing like illustrations for books, and they do murals on walls and things like that.
I
And
love that. So I love it when people say they've got a family that's, I look at my family, there's like not one drop of artists. Like, so that's really beautiful because I would love to be around that all the time. So,
uh,
in your opinion, right, and I guess you've highlighted that's been a big part for you. And how do you feel art helps with mental health for you and for the children? Like, what does it do chemically to us that how some people go, I know that I heard that coloring was really in at one point for like meditation, and it calms you down. So, what do you think art does?
well, I find for myself when I draw or paint, it just relaxes me and it helps me think. Like,
Mm,
um, I I guess I'm not a very academic person, so I like to sit and I'll draw, and it helps me calm down. It helps me think about um, just being like it's mindfulness. It's about being in that moment
yeah.
of like just living. Like if I'm drawing a picture, it might take me a long time to draw a picture.
And
Like
is a picture in relation? Is a picture a reflection of what you're feeling? You
not
think?
always. No.
Yeah. Okay.
I, it's more about the process than what it actually is. Like the outcome could be here or there. Like I'm
Yeah.
not. I I always tell people when they come to see me that this is not an art class.
Yeah.
Like because that people get a little bit confused. Like I I I think when you live in that moment and you're just drawing, whatever it is you're drawing or painting or creating, um, you just become one with that, and that's
Yeah.
where your focus
Yeah.
is. And so you might be having the worst day in the world, but if you're doing that, everything is sort of like blocked out for
Mm.
that time.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
I mean,
if you
what
get
about
rid of,
colours though? I remember I went to an art, and it was a workshop on healing through art, and there was these massive bits of paper on the wall, and she would just get us to feel something, and then she'd say, "Go and draw something." And it was interesting how the topics that we were talking about. I really didn't expect myself to be colouring in dark, like I don't like dark colours in general, but I picked up the blacks and the browns, and I'm going, "Wow, this is expressing what I'm feeling on the inside." Um, and I never thought about it. So the process is important, isn't it? Like, because you
it
do
really
things
is.
that you don't think about.
Yeah, it really is important. The whole process of doing it. It doesn't necessarily mean and colors especially I think mean something different to everybody.
Mm,
I've done workshops as things with children on color, and it's really interesting what people, especially the children, say about color. It's like because they often learn that pink is for girls and blue is for boys, and what does that mean? Like you have to
well,
draw
okay.
out color. So then I say, well, what is red? Like, how does red make you feel? Or how does yellow make you feel? And so then I get all sorts of answers back because some people think yellow is amazing. It's a bright, happy color, and it's
Mm.
like, oh, I feel so good. It's yellow. But other people go, oh, it's yellow. It makes me feel,
Yeah.
like,
Wow. It's funny because I don't think anyone. Well, I don't think people sit down and actually think about that. What you just said. Because the other thing I was thinking about with you working with kids is are the pictures representation of something? You know, in the movies, I always see
Yeah,
pictures of people go, "Oh, look, there's a house, but there's no father. Oh my
yeah.
God, let's get a psychologist."
Oh, yes,
Is
yes.
that what it's really like, or is it just?
No, no, no. I guess there are some people who probably be more forensically involved
Yeah, yeah,
in the drawing of the picture, but to me, like I have one client, she always draws this house and it's beautiful. Like she draws this house and it's like there's her sleeping in her bedroom and there's her little sister sleeping in her bedroom and there's mummy and there's the doorbell and she draws pictures and it's really funny because she goes, ding dong, someone's at the door. Who is it? Like, and then she draws the postman, and I say, well, where's Daddy? Like, why isn't Daddy here?
he's at
Right?
work. Daddy's at
Well,
work.
yeah, Daddy's at work. Yeah, exactly, 100%. So Daddy's not in the picture because obviously Daddy's at work.
Yeah, so she's taking. So she thinks that she's actually doing the picture in real time. It's
Yeah,
not reflective of a moment. That's, you know what I
well,
mean? So it's
it
interesting,
could
isn't
be
it?
a moment in time, but
Yeah,
there was
yeah,
a moment when Daddy was at work, or
yeah,
or it was a time she remembers the postman coming that day,
yeah,
and
mm,
they might have been still in bed. Mummy answered the door, but
yeah,
it doesn't necessarily mean a lot.
yeah,
A
yeah.
lot of it shows her connection, like it could show her connection to like her mum or her sister, or and
Yeah,
then
it just. Well, I think the point that you made, that's important, because that's why it's good having you on the show, is because we make assumptions, and so you're really telling. I mean, I know I can sometimes think that, I imagine that all kids will draw the same thing, but in reality, they're individuals and all that. So it's good to know that everyone is different. Because I really wanted just to ask and focus a little bit on, say, if someone has got a kid at kindy and they are going through some mental health problems, what would you do, and this is again your opinion, what would you do to actually maybe help them through art? How would you get that child to maybe either self-soothe or highlight what they're feeling? Because you were saying earlier that not all the kids know what they're feeling.
yeah, a lot of kids don't know how to express what they're feeling. I often just find that I'll just sit down with one of the children with blank pieces of paper and some texters or pencils, and we just scribble. Like it could just be anything. Like, and then we will talk, and it's a really good time, especially if you can get one-on-one time with the child. Sit there, and I just talk about. I might just be drawing, and I might talk about where I live, and I have a garden at my house, and I'll say, oh, "This is the flowers I have," or and then they might start drawing about their house, and they'll tell me things. Then they start to open up more.
Right.
Um, so, like, I might draw a picture of my dogs, or or a trip to the zoo, or anything like that, and then they might start telling me about how when they went on a trip with their mum or dad, or
Mm.
and they might be able to explain to me things um, like they sometimes I get stories that are like, oh, I don't like the man that lives down the hallway, like and that's when you start to go, oh, who's the man that lives down the hallway, and then they start telling you all this in depth about how he's not a very nice person and he comes to
Yeah.
visit.
See, this is
All
so.
this
I
stuff.
find it so fascinating when you, because I again would not think that a 3 or 4-year-old would even notice, but they notice everything.
Oh yes, there's nothing that goes unnoticed by a child.
Yeah.
Everything. I get all sorts of stories about mums and dads that I'm sure they don't want me to know.
Yeah.
Um,
Have you noticed, was there a shift at all once COVID came?
Yes, I think COVID was my big kickstart into going online and talking to the families and children directly through.
Okay. And what would they talk? What would they present? Like, what were the things that you noticed was a theme? In my practice, I don't see children that age. I started seeing teenagers, and I mean, anxiety really increased last year to like massive, proportions. What were you noticing with your consultations and with your art?
I really found that children they were very anxious. They didn't, they knew that there was a virus. They
Mm.
knew that there was things going on that made them stay at home. So they were suffering socially, like because kids that age they really need to be social. Like, and a lot of kids really need to let out a lot of energy by playing in the park and running and things like that. So there was a lot of that could
Yeah.
happen for them.
Okay.
So they were feeling very anxious and very.
Was there any correlation between the parents also being anxious?
Yeah.
I'm just curious. So like,
Yeah, there were some that because Kinder was open to people who were essential workers, we would get kids that would come in that whose parents were, nurses or doctors, and the kids themselves would be nervous, and they didn't want to leave mum or dad, and
Yeah.
whereas before they were quite fine being dropped off. There wasn't a big issue.
Right. So what do you think that was about?
That was about they can tell mum and dad are nervous about something.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
they feel that nervous, and they think, why are they nervous, and are they nervous because they're leaving me here, or is this a safe place? I think it's a safe place, but now mum and dad are acting a bit funny, so I don't know.
Yeah. So do you think that it's important? I mean, again, my assumption is that you don't talk honestly to children, but the thing is, but you're working with them all the time.
Yeah,
do you think that they're able to comprehend some truth, or do we need to filter?
I think truth is the best.
Okay, so how do you explain those big things to them, like COVID? Like, how did you explain to them when you're teaching them and you're in that? Like, was there communication with the kids?
Oh yeah, definitely, 100%. Like they were right involved. Like they were really, really involved in the whole COVID conversation right at the beginning of last year. I work with another amazing teacher, and she had this game that we played. We explained what COVID was, that it was a germ and that it could be spread through touch. And we played this game where myself and the other teacher, we put green paint on our hands, right? And we went up to each other. I don't know. It's on my Facebook page. I don't know if you saw it, but we touched each other, and you could see the green finger parts, and it was like, well, that's what happens with the virus. It spreads like this. So if you touch each other like this and like that, and then we went around all the children and we shook hands. So the paint would then transfer onto them, and if they touched themselves, they would see that the germs.
Wow! How bad was the paint everywhere?
Oh, it was fun. It was great. I mean,
what I mean is that I saw the exercise actually on TV, but what they did was that they used invisible paint, and so no one knew. So the teacher only knew, right? And so the teacher had it on her hand, and all the kids was doing it. And by the end of the day, they got ultraviolet light.
Oh,
the whole classroom was covered. Like it was totally like amazing how one hand had totally covered the whole place.
Yes.
Look
from that, like that, because I mean, they always knew that we washed our hands before we had snack, or we washed our hands when we came inside, or we washed our hands, after we went to the bathroom and things like that. But it really showed them what germs were and how
what's happening.
Transferred. Yeah. And then we had this exercise where we made germs, and what do germs look like, and what and are they scary, or are they so we all made germs. Like, it was kind of fun.
Was it like big monsters versus pretty colours?
Some of them were like just blobs, because we used a eyedropper to drop ink on a page. So they would splatter, and then we would put eyes on them, or draw arms and legs, or whatever the germs were. And it was lots of fun. And the kids then, I think it became more like, oh, this is what a germ is. And some germs are good, some germs are bad, because not everything is not all bacteria.
We can't just assume. And it sounds like art can be utilized for so much in regards to how you teach and educate. So I'm assuming here that children have got a bigger capacity than sometimes we make out.
Yeah, oh yes.
Like their coping mechanism. Like like you're saying, the parents were coming in with the kids and they're a bit nervous, so the kids picked up on that. But in reality, the kids probably adapt quickly.
They do. And what I find is that when they come in, like even the last week, I've had to find that when they come in, I have to just tell them things are a little bit different again, but everything's okay, right? We'll come in and we're gonna have fun today. And because at the moment the parents can't come into the kinder, and we're wearing masks again, and it is confronting for the children. When the teacher's standing there at the front door with the mask on, and and I guess I love the fact that when I asked you, are you being honest? That would help them. Does that also transcend to the other parents honest as well? Yes, I think from what I've experienced, the parents are very honest with their children, which is good, because there's no point in trying to hide it, because they just think, what are they hiding?
And like you said, they've got like multiple, they've got special bionic ears, I reckon. They can hear stuff.
They've
So
got
you know how you said that you've noticed that you now do work with the parents. Is there anything in particular that you feel is an obstacle, like where parents aren't just getting it, or do you feel that as Melbourne, because we're in Melbourne, do you think that the parents that you're talking to actually are really good and they get it?
as in the art therapy, yeah.
Again, the
Yeah,
importance of that and how mental health now is impacting as more people. Like once upon a time, I think mental health was it was about them. Oh my god, they've got it. But I think now we can all probably not say to ourselves that we either have had a mental health problem or we know someone that's got one. It's no longer like the secret. So do
yeah,
they get that if their kids are feeling stressed and so on?
yeah. I think parents now do. I think parents understand that they may not think that their child has, like
Depression or
a
something.
mental health problem, but they know that they need to keep their child's mental health well.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
um, I think there has been times when people have gone, well, how is this helping my child? But the majority of the time, a lot of parents are really for it. Like they're really engaged and they love
That's really good.
when they see what I do with them. Like even if I'm just reading them a story or whether I've got puppets or, like, and we're having fun singing a song, the parents see how that benefits the
Yeah.
children. If they get to
Yeah.
see it, they understand. I
That's
think
good.
some parents are very academically minded and they want their children to know, like when they're in kinder, they want them to know their times tables and they want them to know how to like to write a whole a whole novel or something. But it's really important at the age that I
Yeah.
with that they just are
Have
safe.
fun and like they can feel safe and it's there was a period where I thought that the world was steering away from the arts and all that, but I think in a way COVID has brought it all back or made it highlight the importance that we can't just be robots and just go to work and just we need to have this creative side. I mean, I know myself that when I was in lockdown I bought art stuff.
Yeah,
So and I'm thinking I would never ever in a million years sit there and color in a picture with my little textures, and I freaking loved it because I got really into it. Um,
yeah.
can I ask you? I know you've mentioned a lot of things anyway, but say our listeners are experiencing some, anxiousness or nervousness. What are some simple exercises that you might suggest for them to maybe just do to help them?
Oh, yeah, look, a really simple one. If you like music, find a piece of music that you like
Hmm.
and just sit with your eyes closed and listen to that piece of music and really pick up on, like, it might be just the sound of one instrument in that piece of music. And just every time you hear that instrument, just really focus in on it and just follow that instrument through the piece of music. Um, I really like to do that, and I listen out for, like, depending on the music you're listening to, listening out to like the sound of I don't know, like a certain kind of symbol or a triangle. Or you might hear, like if you listen to classical music, you might hear the sound of the violin, and if you follow the violin part through the music, like it takes you on a journey
Yeah,
that you may not necessarily hear if you're just listening to the whole piece as it is.
yeah, and I think you're also highlighting that it's okay to stop and do that.
Oh,
I
definitely. I
think
think it's
people just have
important.
things in the background and we just take it for granted. But when you stop, I've done that before and I was shocked how many instruments I could hear.
Oh, yes, it's really good. Like to sit there and, like, even with the children, like you play a piece of music and you ask them to name as many instruments as they can that they can hear. Um, some are really good at it, depending on their exposure to music as well. But
Yeah.
so, like, because a lot of instruments they might sound the same to the children, but yeah, like music is one of the best ways to relax. The other thing that I like to do is while I'm listening to that music, I draw at the same time. So I might be listening, say if I'm listening to one part of a song, and I'm just drawing that part as I go. And it may not, and like it's just a line or it
Oh,
could be circles
wow.
or, um, yeah, like it just could just be
So
anything.
you're sort of like letting go and just following the music rather than going into your head. Because
Yeah, that's,
like a lot of people get so anxious about drawing and they'll say
yeah,
straight
yeah.
away, I can't draw.
Oh, yeah, a lot
And
of
so that
people.
stops them from actually doing anything. So that's good. It's like saying you put the music on, put the pen in your hand or texter and just let your hand do the moving rather than the music, rather than the head.
Yeah, yeah. Like the best thing, I think I've always done this ever since I was a child. Though I just sitting there and just breathe and draw. Like, and it could be just circles, it could be lines, it could be patterns, it could be a repetitive pattern that you do over and over. But it's a really good way for me to relax, and I find a lot of the children like it as well. To sit, or like at kinder, like we sit on the mat, and we might have a quiet time where we play some like a guided meditation or something. There's a really nice one that we play with, like the Mermaid's Cave and all this, like, you know. But if the kids also draw to that,
Mm.
it's really interesting just to see their pictures and what they
Yeah.
draw. Some of them will draw it quite literal, like they'll draw the mermaid going into
Yeah.
the cave. And others you'll see that they've really listened to the music and their drawings will go up and down, and like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
quite nice.
So is there anything else that you suggest to adults?
For adults, I
Like,
would suggest the same thing, really.
yeah. So,
I-
but like, you know, so you know, it's like, so anything to do with your hands, and I guess it's just being creative. Yes, because I think again, there's nothing wrong with watching TV and Netflix, but I think that in lockdowns, people just, you know, the one thing that I notice a lot when I go on Facebook is that they say things like, "I'm bored," you know, I've watched everything on Netflix, and I'm thinking, are you really bored? Have you really not explored other things that you can do?
yeah, look, I'm with you there because I often hear, I'm so bored. It's like, how are you bored? Like, and I think boredom is a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Well,
think
yeah, boredom is, it means that it just, if you don't know what to do, I think for me personally, I think to myself, okay, I'm not thinking hard enough, because there's always something to do. It doesn't mean that you need to always just go to television, which again, for me personally, I sometimes feel a bit numb. I don't feel like I don't feel like, I look at the time and go, oh my God, it's 4 hours and I don't feel anything. So I'd rather
yes,
be maybe
yeah,
making or doing something. And like the secret men's business has been good for me because I've never did any of these graphics, and so that's
yeah,
the like art,
yeah.
and I really love that. It really helps me to feel calm, especially if I do it before I go to bed. So before we go, like, is there room if people wanted to contact you? Is there room for them to maybe join, or is there information? So I'll attach your website below. So where are you at with your numbers?
With client wise,
Yeah, let's.
I definitely have time.
Yep.
I definitely it's at the moment because I work out of community centres a lot.
Mm.
I've been shut out because of the lockdown, but I definitely do have spaces available in the evenings, some mornings. But because I also do kinder, I sort of weave in and out of wherever I
Yeah.
can do that. And
So
maybe,
I'll make sure that all your information's in there so they have access to you.
yeah,
And
find
yeah, and I think
Facebook
that, you
group.
know, I think that, you know, the more that we talk about it, the more I remember meeting someone and going, at first, I'm not going to lie, I did feel odd, right? Because it was a different feeling. And, you know, I mean, I remember going into the workshop and I had no idea what was going to happen. And the lady just said, okay, I want you to put these masks on, the blindfolds. And then she said, I want you to dance how you're feeling. And at
Yeah,
the beginning, it was really uncomfortable. But then I found myself doing this really intense freaking, you
yeah.
know,
Oh,
dance. And I felt so good afterwards because I got all of the emotion out through movement. So I know that this sort of stuff really, really helps with mental health, especially if someone doesn't want to do the more clinical type of mental health stuff. They could do it creatively.
oh yeah. Look, I think that even like say if you do have a professional healthcare giver that's giving like a psychologist or a somebody like
Cancer or
giving
something.
yeah, some counts. I think doing this in line with that is a really
Yeah.
good combination. Like
Yeah.
say like a lot of psychiatrists will refer people like and say, oh, maybe you should try some of this creative therapy, you know, like, and
Yeah.
just see how that helps you because it really, really does.
Yeah.
Like,
And so
especially
people can follow you on Facebook, can't they? Because I know that your Facebook group has got, you always post pictures, and I always get inspired. So I'll refer people to that as well, because I think that's a really good thing for them to see some of the pictures that kids are doing, that adults are doing, and that inspires them to maybe do that. So, John, thank you so
thank
much
you.
for talking about art and talking. I mean, I'm so sorry, I forgot about your music background.
That's all right.
You know, it's just, you know, you just have so much creativity. So thank you again, and hopefully some of the listeners will reach out to you.
Thank you.
Thank
Very
you.
much. Thanks for
You've
your
been
time.
listening to the Secret Men's Business podcast. Now, don't forget the podcast is out on Monday. So John's interview will be out on a Monday. And then on Thursdays, we're doing retro podcasts. So you'll get to hear some of the older podcasts from a few years ago. We're going to get them replayed. So everyone, click on like and don't forget to click on John's link to get to see everything he does. We'll see you all soon. Bye.